Individuals from countries including Eritrea, Sudan, Syria and Iran encountered difficulties in waters north of Boulogne-sur-Mer.
At least 100 people have died in Myanmar due to flooding and landslides triggered by Typhoon Yagi, officials reported.
Dam bursts, house collapses and mass flooding have wreaked havoc in the Asian nation, said Zormintun in an audio statement posted by RT India on X.
At least 15 people were killed and 40 others were seriously burned in a gasoline tanker explosion in Haiti, according to the country's prime minister.
16 of the injured were transferred to hospitals in Fond-de-Blanc and Les Cayes.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the host or guest and should not be interpreted as statement of fact. Independent fact-checking and corrections are encouraged.
Can we get a cup of coffee in here, please?
Damn good coffee and hot.
My dog is your mind's best friend.
My dog is your mind's best friend.
Wake up, America. You've got a dog that needs walking. That's right, sunshine. Just put on a big pot of strong coffee.
Sunshine here.
Ready to type your little hate mail with your opinions about kumbaya and flat earth insanity. Stand-up comedy? You want stand-up comedy? Well, we've got sit-down comedy. It's time for Coffee with the Dog. You make me laugh.
You thought I was going to say something, didn't you? You thought I was. You really? What's he going to say? He's not going to say anything? Oh, good morning, folks. Today, it's Tuesday, right? Tuesday, rainy Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. It's a crappy day here. I hope it's a crappy day where you are, too. I'm kidding. I hope you have a better day than I'm having right now with this weather. The chickens are knocking at the door. My wife was not home, and the chickens are very disappointed. Again, coming back to my conspiracy theory of yesterday, I feel like I'm pretty certain that she bought the chickens. She was on the edge of admitting it last night when I confronted her. Where those chickens come from? But I almost got her on the ropes. A little bit more practicing law in defense of people like Dave Grohl might help. And we'll probably talk about that at some point again today. One of the other things we'll probably talk about is Diddy getting arrested, leaving Steven, the sitcom Ortiz, without any competition in the kitty diddler arena, the sector of the world. So you have that. Steven's got the field all to himself now. How about that? Are you impressed? If you are triggered by the N-word, I'm going to let you sign off now. Get off. Because I'm going to be saying the N-word probably within a few minutes here. But you'll also hear another guy, Rich Lowry, saying the N-word at some point in this program. I went to see, my wife brought me to a theater last night, a movie theater. Yes, I know you're shocked. It's been like 20 years since I've been in a movie theater. AMAX movie theater in Stony Brook, Long Island, New York, to see a film called Am I Racist? By Matt Walsh, who is of The Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, executive producer. Am I Racist? And I'm happy to report, yes, Matt, you are a racist. You are also a coward and a liar because, first of all, you put out a movie that appears to be a documentary, but it's all staged, all scripted, and you make no disclaimer of that, and you don't let the people know, people who are inclined to follow you, that it is all scripted and all fake and all phony. So there's that. I'm just gonna say, before we get started here, I will talk about that Matt Walsh thing. Matt Walsh basically puts together, you know Matt Walsh. If you don't know Matt Walsh, he's a phony. He's always been a phony. He's put out a movie called What is a Woman or something like that. Basically, he's frightened by trans people, and his reaction to that is to put out a movie ridiculing trans people. Am I a Racist is he's minimizing race. The whole point of this thing is to claim that racism in America doesn't exist, and as evidence that racism doesn't exist, systemic racism doesn't exist in particular, is that there were only 7,500 plus hate crimes reported in America. So that makes it like a not insignificant problem. Last year, in 1 year alone, 7.5 thousand. So that, that's insignificant, and that means it's not a problem. There's 2 million crimes like shoplifting and I don't know, running a stop sign. 2 million crimes. What's 7,500 hate crimes? See, that proves there's no such thing as racism. If you are of my age or even younger, you probably lived through a time. Well, no, not everybody, but certainly in my lifetime, there were times where people of color could not use the same restrooms, kind of like trans people can. Could not use the same water fountains, and stuff like that. So, as promised, here comes the N-word. If you want to tune out, if the N-word is going to trigger you, tune out now. I'll give you 5 seconds because I'm going to say the N-word. 4, 3, 2, 1. I have never said the word nigger by accident. Not in my life. I have said the word. It wasn't by accident. I just said it just then. That wasn't an accident. I don't think it's possible to say that word accidentally. But somebody is claiming that he just mispronounced the word migrant in this clip. Watch this.
Finally, he said something to the effect of, look, if we have to create stories in order to bring attention to what's happening, the media, he admits they made it up, right? As opposed to, and if you listen to the full clip, he says, by drawing attention to what's happening on the ground, it's just,
right.
As this line goes online, you don't hate the media enough. Go ahead.
You remember Alternative Facts with Kellyanne? They did the same thing. She wasn't saying you make up fictions and pretend they're facts. You bring other facts to bear in the debate that are being ignored. And that's what he was saying. And I think it was in that interview where Dana Bash says, the police have gone through 11 months of recordings of calls, and they've only found 2 Springfield residents calling to complain about Haitian migrants taking geese from ponds. Only 2 calls. And I think one lesson in this whole story, people don't care about geese. People really hate geese. They all things considered, I think people would prefer.
Accidentally. That's what he's claiming now. He mispronounced the word migrant. Migrant is not even close to the word. It wasn't a mispronunciation. It was a Freudian slip. And notice that, if you notice that clip, I'm not going to play it again, but if you noticed in that clip, and it's online, you can go see it, Megyn Kelly's reaction to that, it's pretty much nothing. I promise you, if I were just talking and we had GD and Ron Kane and Steven Ortiz in the room. And I just happened to say, yeah, there were only 2 calls about nigger Haitians. Whoa. I guarantee you Ron and GD and Steven would react. You'd see some kind of reaction. She just smiled, like, which just kind of shows you where the mindset is. That's acceptable. Like, she didn't react at all. I promise you, if I said that with these guys in the room, you would see a reaction, and basically they would be burning my ass for eternity about. And if I tried to cover it up by saying, "Oh, I just mispronouncing the word," I don't know, America. I just mispronounced America by saying nigger, or migrant even. They would call me on it and say, "You're full of shit." She just rolled off her back like, I don't know, rain off a goose. Anyway, back to Matt Walsh, who is absolutely a racist. His film is called I Am a Racist. Don't go see it. I was in a theater. Now, granted, it was Monday night, but there were like 7 people in the theater. And just to be clear here, the trailers before the film came on were all about advocating for Donald Trump. Amazing. It's like AMC's running pro-Republican content and pro-Trump content. And the film basically, as I mentioned, Matt Walsh states that racism isn't real in America because there were only 7,500 reported hate crimes last year. But he also says that all Republicans, everybody in opposition to Donald Trump says that all Donald Trump supporters are racist. I don't say that, and I don't think anybody says that. Anybody I know says that. I think all Donald Trump supporters are okay, or it's not a deal breaker with his racism, but that doesn't make them necessarily racist. They're just, that's not an issue for them as long as they get to, I don't know, keep the migrants, the, South American people from coming across our border and the Haitian people from going to Springfield. As long as they can do that, they're okay with it. But that doesn't necessarily make them racist, right? The thing is made up of actors, and you can tell by the way it's shot that, because people are aware of, there's more than one camera in the room. They're taking several different angles on it. People are mic'd up. That's not by accident. It's not like but they're acting as if they don't know there's a camera. Like, it's just, he just stumbled into a anti-racist dinner party or something like that. All these things are just staged, and it needs to be called out. And I'm not the kind who call for boycotts or any of that kind of stuff, but AMC, man, what are you doing? What are you doing airing just blatant racist propaganda? Again, if you've lived long enough, we have on this program a fresh generation, one generation removed from the Klan person. The Klan is still alive and well in America. Racism is a real thing. And here's the thing. By denying racism exists, we're not looking to make any improvements on it. You can't fix a problem if you deny that problem exists. And this is the whole point of the film, is to deny that racism exists, and it's just a prop that the left is using to demonize Donald Trump, according to this movie. And his followers will believe it. They will use it in a way that is going to be fully propagandized on social media, take clips of it and say, look, this is true. In other words, he has a segment in there where he is petitioning people to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument, and people are supposedly signing up for that. All fake. There's all sorts of things like that, but they will show it as if it is real. And the idea that, listen, the George Floyd and BLM movement and the protests that we saw, those aren't happening because racism doesn't exist. The Black Lives Matter movement came out of police killing people, really. And I'm not demonizing all police officers, but there is definitely a percentage of police officers who will treat black people different because they are black, and they will shoot them just because they're black, where a white guy wouldn't get shot. That's a fact. And to deny that is to deny the pain and wound that so many people of color are feeling. And it's easy for me to try to deny that because I have never lived through it. The idea of being every day being confronted with, I'm getting treated differently because of how I was born, my skin color, my heritage, and all that stuff. So, there's a huge segment of our population walking around wounded, psychologically wounded, spiritually wounded, emotionally wounded because of this thing called racism. And to deny it exists is to keep those people in pain and suffering from something that was imposed on them by no doing of their own. They were born how they are, and and to mistreat them or to treat them any other way, or even to have them live with the psychological scars of the past, is not going to make America better. It is a threat to our society, because if we don't deal with it and find a way to live together in peace and harmony and with self-respect and respect for others, we're doomed. And denying it is just going to make things worse. That's my little soapbox thing today. We're going to meet the dog pound in 1 second. First, I have a commercial. Today, we have two authors. Dan Kopkow, who is a Long Islander, originally from Argentina. And then in the second hour, Will Johnson, Dr. Will Johnson, who's going to be talking about his book about cannabis in spiritual practice. I use it religiously. How about you? Anyway, so that's what we have in store for you today. I hope you'll stick around. We have a commercial to run, and then we'll meet the dog pound, and then we'll meet our first guest in just a few minutes here.
With humble East Coast beginnings in 2015, Daily High Club is the premier destination for glass water pipes, vaporizers, and consumption accessories. If you're looking to elevate your smoking game to the next level, you're in the right place. With over 1 million top-quality smoking products sold, and with a growing base of over 10,000 monthly subscribers worldwide, we deliver the ultimate smoking experience. But Daily High Club is not just a retailer. We're lovers of the smoking scene ourselves, working with giants like Tommy Chong, Snoop Dogg, Chanel West Coast, and more. Ready to join the Daily High Club? Let our experts curate your collection with our awesome El Primo monthly subscription box, or grab one of our fun and unique pieces from our smoke shop. Click the link in the description below this video to get this party started now.
What's going on here? Come on. Well, I'm in my spot. How about that? Everybody's lined up right. How did that happen?
Because I'm back, baby.
Oh. Yeah. In the room with me now is Stephen the Diddler Ortiz.
Motherfucker.
Oh, yeah. And Citizen Kane, who is just looking like stoic, I guess stoic. And my best friend of the last, actually 1 year, 1.5 years, I was looking through my memories last night, and it looked like GD was already a host at this time last year. It doesn't add up that Church has only 49 weeks or 40, whatever it is. It should be at least 52, because he started on this show in the summer of 23. But my best friend of the last 37 years, Mr. T.S. Eliot. T.S.
Good morning, America. MindDogTV.com. Are you a fuck up and need someone to blame for your fuck ups? Well, South Park got away with blaming Canada, and Trump and Vance are getting away with blaming Biden, Harris, and Haitians. But what if you're not political? Come to Mind Dog TV and blame us. That's right. Blame Coffee with the Dog. MindDogTV.com.
Totally.
Blame and support your local mercenaries.
Oh, man, that was brutal. Now, one of the things that Matt Walsh claims proves he's not racist is he has black friends. So
that's what every racist person. I'm not racist. I got black friends.
Yeah. Have you guys heard of this movie?
Yeah. No. Oh, yeah. I've known of Matt Walsh for a while. I've saw this coming for a while, and he's like the Quentin Tarantino of
he is dishonest in the way he's portraying this thing. He is portraying it like it's a documentary. He's putting it out there as if this is off the cuff, just one guy with the camera following him around, when it was really completely scripted. Actors in it, everybody in it is reciting lines. There's a multi-camera shoot. Things where he drops a plate on the floor and all of a sudden you see the angle on the floor. Like that doesn't happen if people don't know there's cameras and you're on a Hollywood production. So it's really bad, and it's going to get a lot of traction. A lot of people who support that idea of denying racism. Look, we could argue about what the solutions are and how we mend the problem, but we can't. If you come at it from a place of denial, you're sabotaging society. That's
this guy's whole MO is fear baiting and misconstruing questions and answers from people. If you've seen What Is a Woman, it's not him addressing real concerns. It's not like, oh no, what if a pedophile uses the trans thing as an excuse? He doesn't even mention that. You know what he does? He goes around looking for trans people and says, hey, you're not what you say you are. I'm offended.
Yeah.
That's all he does the whole fucking movie. He's just attacking people. He's not talking about any of it. He's just being an asshole.
It was just being an asshole throughout most of this stuff. And there were people absolutely laughing at this movie like it was a comedy. And it was pretty disturbing for me. I was sitting there boiling in my seat, and the AMC is like really comfortable. I have to say, I'm not saying that people should boycott it, but they're playing some really shitty movies. But for a place that plays a bunch of shitty movies, the theater accommodations are amazing. I mean, the seats, I'm like, I could go to sleep here. But 8 or 9 people in the theater on a Monday night, and so every one of them was supportive of this idea, looking for somebody to tell them they're not racist. They were all white.
Did the theater smell like lube?
No. The Regent Theater in Bayshore back in the 70s used to. These are my memories. Anyway,
of course you remember that one, don't you, Matt? Hey, Matt. So how are the movies different now compared to when you used to go back in the 50s? What's changed?
Well, as far as I could tell last night, it's all hardcore MAGA world. That's a good. They have Dinesh D'Souza, or whatever his name, Dinesh D'Souza, who has admitted that his last film, 2,000 Mules, or whatever the hell it was, 10,000 Mules. How many mules? That was completely fraudulent. He made it up. He admitted to that in court. He fabricated all of that. He admitted to that, and his distributor stopped distributing the film because he admitted to that. He was sued over it, lost the law.
Too late. By that time, my stepson had seen the movie. Well, my stepson, I couldn't explain to him, but way before the movie was proven to be fraudulent, how fraudulent the guy and the movie were. I just couldn't reach him.
I understand that, but the only reason I'm bringing it up is because now it was too late for that movie. But now that we know that he completely fabricated that movie. How could anybody not take this next movie that he's put out, which is Vindicating Trump or something like that is the title of it. How can people not take that with a grain of salt? This is a guy who has admitted he makes shit up out of whole cloth.
At the risk of being a wet blanket, I think we should discuss this with our guest, the author. Actually, we don't even discuss. Let's discuss the book, and we pick this up later. Because
you know what?
I can go on for like as long as I've been
that's
black.
the smartest thing you've ever said, GD.
We'll wait till the overtime. But I just want to say I did fuck up this morning. In my preparation, I was here probably like at least 45 minutes early. I should have been prepared. I didn't get either of the books loaded up.
What were you doing that whole time?
I was getting clips of Corey, Rich Lowry or whoever.
I showed up at like 8:15 and Matt's
I was making poster images and I was doing all that. So getting the news segments loaded up. That's what I was doing.
Well, I'm just glad we didn't have what happened last time where I caught you naked.
Is the book Madcap Serenade? Because I thought that was a movie.
Yes. Yes.
Madcap Serenade?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'll work on that.
I know it does. It reads like it's a movie. Let me read his introduction, and then we'll meet Dan. Dan Kopkow. Kopkow. It's like you're under arrest. Here's some milk. Kopkow. It's Kopkow.
I mean, I get it, but that was just awful.
I think it's Kapkow. I'm sorry. You know what? Sue me.
Go on. I will.
Dan Kapkow is from Argentina, the first generation American, having grown up speaking Spanish, raised on Long Island. Dan grew up to appreciate the rhythm of the English language. The rhythm of the English language. I think he's been on Governors with Knock 'em Dead Comedy. I think he has done a segment on there. His latest book is called Madcap Serenade, is a wild musical coming-of-age journey about plunging into a romantic Italian adventure that's being described as Sleepless in Seattle by way of John Hughes, which is an unusual way of describing a book. Let's welcome in Dan Kapka. Dan, I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name. Good morning.
Good morning. It is Kopkow.
Kopkow. All right.
Cop. No, you were right the first time. Kopkow, like a police officer giving you milk.
Yeah. Okay. Unusual name. Now, is that like an Argentinian name? I mean, what is the?
It is Lithuanian.
Lithuanian.
Yeah. And my parents were born in Argentina. I was actually born here, firstborn generation. But yeah, good to see everybody. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm sorry I don't have your book. I generally almost always have the author's books to show. If you have it, you'd be doing me some. You'd be bailing me out a little bit. There you go. Now, in the description, it does read like it's already a film. It's a musical comedy a musical coming of age about plunging into a romantic Italian adventure. That reads like it's a film, but it's a book.
It is.
Is it going to be a film? Is that the intent there? Oh, there it goes. Thank you for.
Can you squish it for me? Because I don't know how to squish it yet.
No, I can't. Not in that format. No, I need to put it into Photoshop and squish it. You can take it out. Well,
okay.
While we're talking, I'll go get it. But so Dan, talk to me. Is it going to be a movie, or is that the plan?
Well, that would be lovely. If anybody knows of a producer out there or financing, it absolutely would make a wonderful movie. There's no plans for that yet. But before that, can I just sort of the elephant in the room? Can I just say that listening to your introduction, I 100% agree with everything that you just said. And wow. I'm just sort of amused at how sort of the really hard pivot from that conversation, which was very serious, to like my silly romantic comedy book.
We do this every day. I mean, because if you don't try to interject some humor into the whole thing, you will go crazy. You will go, and what I would not. I'll just caution you: don't ever agree with me. I don't ever, especially 100%, or you will probably draw the ire and hatred of half of Long Island at least. I think you're pretty aware. Being on Long Island, you still live on Long Island, correct?
I don't. I live in upstate New York now.
Good for you.
Well, actually, if you think about it, it's not really that hard of a pivot, because a lot of your best racism was portrayed in musicals. So
that's true.
Yeah.
What do you think? You talking West Side Story?
Song of the South. I was Mammy. What's your name? Mammy, don't you know me, Mammy from Alabama, Mammy? That one.
Al Jolson.
Oh, yeah.
Jolson. Yeah.
You're a jazz singer. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of your best racism was portrayed through the art of the musical. So it's not that hard of a pivot.
Very good point. And I hate to compliment you by saying good point, but I got to prove that I have a black friend, so I stay out of trouble here. Because I don't know if you heard it, but I dropped a few N-bombs here today, so I'm going to be in trouble with
That's nothing. That's my wife is white. I hear it all the time.
Oh my God.
All right. Dan, this is not your first book.
It's not. I had a bunch of short stories published, and then I put together a short story collection about romantic dates that go horribly wrong, called Worst Date Ever.
And I'm not in it. I can't believe you wrote that book and I'm not in it. You don't have a section of for at least black people where I could be in it. Are you writing a sequel? If you're writing a sequel, call me.
Nice, I will. It's funny, whenever I bring that book up, everybody I talk to has a story. They're like, let me tell you. And I've talked to 80-year-old people, and I've talked to 8-year-olds, and they're like, let me tell you about my worst date ever. It really has
and some of the 8-year-olds are saying it was with an 80-year-old. So
no, most of the 8-year-olds saying, do you know Stephen Ortiz? Because he's my boyfriend.
Listen here. My minimum age is 19. Okay.
Oh, all right.
19.
I'm sorry. I'll back off that.
I hang outside the community college for that. Okay.
All right. I'm sorry.
I think the sequel
we're gonna have to be on the roof after this. Okay.
My minimum age is 19.
Yeah. Oh, you're like Dave Grohl then, who Ron Kane thinks is the most vile person ever. We're gonna see if we can.
He's my hero. I plan on knocking up a 19-year-old at 49 or 52 as well.
We'll talk about that in overtime too.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, back to you, Matt.
Yeah. So now, being when you growing up on Long Island, was that part of your plan for yourself to be an author?
Yeah, I've been writing as long as I can remember. Growing up in Hicksville, I knew enough about writing that I knew it probably was not going to pay the bills. So I do have a day job. I'm an environmental engineer, but I've always been writing and on the side, and was lucky enough to, get published. I've had a couple of screenplays that almost got produced, and lots of short stories, and then these three novels.
You wrote the screenplays, or you wrote the books that were adapted into screenplays?
No, the screenplays I wrote had nothing to do with these books. They were just original screenplays and some pilots for TV.
Wow.
And they almost got produced, but then the financing and other things fell through.
Well, I want to come back to the screenplay stuff and the difference between writing a screenplay and writing a novel. But I want to start with the Italian, how Italian fits into this whole Madcap Serenade. What is that? Because Long Island is full of guineas like me. But where does that come from? The Italian part of this romance.
Yeah, so the book itself is completely fiction and invention, but it's based on a true story that happened to me. So in 1979, I was growing up in Hicksville, and I was in a professional boys choir. That was a big deal on Long Island in the New York City circuit. It was called the Singing Boys of Long Island. Like we sang at the lighting of the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center. We sang backup for Pavarotti at Carnegie Hall. It was like this big deal choir, and kids came from all over Long Island to practice, and they came to Hicksville because I found out about it because I was going to the Hicksville Junior High, and my chorus teacher, as kind of a side hustle, was the founder and director of this choir, and he had invited me to join. And I said, kids were coming in from like 2-hour drives to come to this thing. And in the summer of '79, we were invited to do a 3-week tour through all the major cathedrals of Italy. So we sang in Milan and Florence, Venice. And the last week we were in Rome. And that week ended with us singing Sunday Mass at the Vatican, which was exciting for everybody else but me, because I was the only Jew in the choir. And this was supposed to be a non-denominational choir, but we sang at a lot of churches and cathedrals. But that was okay with me.
I don't understand. Can't Jews sing?
What's that?
You said you're the only Jew in the choir. Can't Jews sing? I thought you could. I don't understand.
I was the only one that wasn't as excited as the rest of singing Sunday Mass at the Vatican. It was a lot more meaningful for everyone else but me. And so during that Mass, the choir director pointed his baton at me, telling me that I had the solo that day. And I looked over, and like 15 feet away from me was the Pope, Pope John Paul II, who had only been Pope for about a year. And like half the world's cardinals and 80,000 people crammed into St. Peter's and sitting outside in the square. And the choir director raised his baton to indicate to me and the accompanist that my solo was about to begin. And the Pope and a couple of the cardinals leaned in a little bit. And so I got closer to the microphone and said, you don't need to lean in. To manage expectations. And the choir director probably wished his baton was a spear. But I looked over and the Pope laughed. And, I can tell you guys, you would understand this. Like, that's a tough room. So I got to laugh.
To get a laugh out of the Pope is a major, major comedic achievement.
Especially that Pope. It's not like Francis. Francis laughs at everything. But
well, he's Argentine, so he would get my humor. But we returned back to the Vatican the following Wednesday, like along with 100,000 other people, because the Pope does his weekly address from the balcony to everyone standing outside at St. Peter's Square. And we had gotten there as a choir early enough that we were standing right next to the barricade. They created these 2 lines of barricades because after the Pope does his address, he gets into his Pope-mobile and he rides through the crowd shaking everybody's hand. And this was before the assassination attempt, so he didn't have like that Pop-O-Matic glass bubble.
I was just going to ask how he did that through the glass, but that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, this is before that. So we're waiting. It's really hot. It's really loud. And the choir director has all the choir boys stand a little closer together. And he says, I think for the benefit of the people standing around us, any requests. And someone from the crowd yelled, "Freebird."
Yes. I was just about to say I would have yelled Freebird. This has been a running joke for anyone that's known me for the last like 10 years or so. Anytime I go to a show and there's a lull, I yell "Play Freebird."
That's not funny. It was funny 40 years ago. It's not funny anymore.
It will be funny to me till the day I die, Matt. Don't you take this from me.
It's not funny anymore.
As my legs, don't take this.
At first, I thought you were going to say it smelled like the grand opening of a new Toys R Us.
This was like that, but with fancier hats.
Right. Any requests, Freebird in the Vatican.
Okay. Yeah. So, and just between us, I may or may not have been the one that yelled that out. So
he's my new favorite author that's come on this show. I'm gonna need a signed copy of this book ASAP.
So to kind of avoid the choir director's gaze, because he was glaring at me, I turned around and I looked at the crowd at the other side of the other barricade, and I saw this tall, pretty girl like my age. And so I was immediately smitten, and I'm trying to get her attention, and we can't hear each other because it's so loud. And so I think she said her name was Jane, but I'm not entirely sure. And as I'm waving to her, someone grabs my hand and just starts pulling me along the barricade. And I look up and it's the Pope, and he's holding my hand. He's riding by in his Pope-mobile, and he's looked down. I think he recognizes that I'm the kid that made him laugh past Sunday. So he's holding on to me a little bit longer. And this should be like a big, important core memory. But A, I'm 13 and I'm interested in the girl, and B, I'm a dude. So I'm trying to shake this guy loose, and he won't let go. And I finally, disencumber myself from him so he can go on his way. And I look back, and Jane was gone. I know.
Man.
I was heartbroken. So I always thought about her and who she was and what she was doing there. So that whole situation and thinking about her is kind of what inspired the book. So
amazing.
Place on Long Island and the other half in Italy.
And then you saw the assassination attempt, and you were like, "That's what you get for Jane."
That's right.
A couple of things to note. When the Pope grabbed your hand, he said he wouldn't let go. You realize that as a member of the Catholic priesthood, he really is required not to let go of a young boy once he's got a hold of him.
Right.
Right. And I was waiting for that.
Even though you're Jewish, you're from Argentina. Were you excited that Francis was in Argentine?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was just curious because it's country over faiths, kind of in that regard.
GB, he already mentioned that he was in Argentine. He'd mentioned that like 4 minutes ago.
Yeah, I said that. I that's what I was referencing.
You guys take that fight offline, will you? I would now just considering that story, I would have probably renamed the book "Cock Blocked by the Pope."
Yes. There is a dedication to the Pope in the book where I say, I'd like to dedicate this to Pope John Paul II, you sly old rooster wall.
Now, have you been back to the Vatican since?
Rooster wall, I love that.
You're not invited back, are you?
I am not. There's a picture of me still at the admissions office. So I was back last year, but just as a tourist, and they wouldn't.
Wow. Thanks for sharing this, because I have been, as we get older, you don't seem to be a kid. Obviously, this story happened a long time ago, so you can relate to this. I have been definitely living through memories of every significant moment in my life. I think when you get to my age now, you kind of in constant review mode. Like, not that I may have any regrets or anything like that. It's just kind of like you're interested in taking account of where you were and how you got to where you are today. And those kind of memories that last a lifetime sometimes can fill us with, sentimental what ifs. And you never got to meet this girl, right? Ever?
Never got to meet this girl.
Can you still see her face?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Jane, if you're listening,
probably 13.
Jane, if you're watching, it's been a while, but no.
Now, I'm assuming you grew up and married somebody at some point. Yes,
I did. Yeah.
Did your wife know about this heartbreak as a teenage boy? This not a heartbreak, but this lost opportunity of somebody who might have been the one.
Yeah, but I mean, I think she understands that if Jane came back into my life, it's not a hard decision. I would stay with my wife.
Of course. I'm not suggesting otherwise. It's just like, I know my wife, because I have shared these kind of stories with my wife, and it still brings up some jealousy or zinger moments. Like, she won't let me forget about mistakes I made and bring them up.
Why, with my wife, we have a no talking of past partners policy.
Well, this isn't a past part. This is a past missed opportunity.
Past missed opportunities, past partners, past flings. We don't talk about none of that, because, God damn it, the last time I brought one up, it took 6 months for her to forget it.
Okay.
Ever again.
My wife has a game that she likes to. My wife's favorite drinking game is Let's Fuck Shit Up, and she plays it by she'll say things like, so do you think about, and she'll mention one of my ex's names. And I'm like, no, not until you just mentioned it. I hadn't thought about her for like 20 years. Thank you for bringing it up,
Yeah. So then the book is based on that story, but I'm assuming now I have not read the book. Full disclosure here, I have not read the book, but I'm assuming it just uses that as an impetus to start the story, but it turns out very differently from there on, right?
Yeah. So the story is what I just described is there's sort of a slightly fictionalized version of that in the prologue, and then everything else is like I said, fiction and invention. But yeah, the first half takes place in Hicksville, and the second half in Italy, and it's got dual narrators, two 16-year-olds, Eli and Jane, and it's told in their first person alternating chapters, and yeah, so it's about conning your way into a professional boys choir to get a free tour of Italy. She tries to smuggle some erotic novels for various reasons, gets caught by her parents. They're tired of her shenanigans, so they send her to a convent in Rome. And she escapes from that, and they both are unraveling kind of deep, dark family secrets. There's 2 murder mysteries. They get embroiled in a government plot to locate a legendary drug.
Wow.
And no spoiler alert, because it's a rom-com, and then at the end they find true love with each other.
So now this opens up a lot of possibilities for, especially for the marketing end of it. Which category this book fall into? Like mysteries? Is it a romance novel? Is it? I mean, it could be so many things especially on the Amazon categories where there are a billion different categories. Right. Where do you place this book?
So it's under romantic comedy. And then the decision I had to make with the publisher was, is it for adults or is it young adults? Because the 2 protagonists are 16-year-olds. But it's been mostly adult readers because of the nostalgia aspect of it being taking place in 1979. So it's been mostly adults, and it's a very different time frame. And there have been a lot of kids, I guess 13 and over, who are reading it, who are fascinated by how different it was to be a kid in 1979.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Dude, my mom was 6 in 79. A long time ago.
It was really fun and to write it in 1979, because I could get these kids into so many predicaments, and they couldn't use technology to assist them out of that, the jam that they were in.
That's a trick when writing retro stories now, is you have to forget about the idea of all the technology that especially cell phones and stuff like that, and understand that, when you were away from home, you were out on your own, that you were really out of contact with people, unless you had a dime, a quarter, whatever, for a payphone, which were hard to find. It's a different world we live in.
Right.
Now,
and
have you, because of being set in 1979, have you by chance gotten one of your fans to write you to let you know that phone booths are also used as time machines and refer you back to the TARDIS in Doctor Who?
Yes, and Clark Kent gets to change into Superman.
Yes.
So now you're traditionally published, meaning you have who's the publisher on this?
Black Rose Writing. They're an independent publisher.
Okay, yeah, I'm aware of Black Rose. So why go that route instead of self-publishing? Just curious, because this is a question that comes up so often with publishers. Is the world has changed in the world of publishing books, and often it's more advantageous to self-publish. So why did you make that decision to go that route?
Sure. And yeah, when I talk to other publishers that are wondering whether they should self-publish or go through an independent publisher, the question I always ask them is, well, what are you trying to get out of all of this? Going to a major publisher is nearly impossible because they don't take anything that's not solicited. You need an agent, and it's nearly impossible to get a literary agent. Whereas there are thousands of independent publishers. I chose to go the indie publisher route, even though, again, it's very competitive. Every indie publisher is probably getting 300 to 400 manuscripts a day being sent to them that they have to select from. but I wanted to have my book available in the widest possible audience, in the widest possible types of markets. If you self-publish, you're not going through a distributor, and a lot of bookstores will not carry your book, and you're just selling mostly to your friends and family and anybody else you can get attention from. Whereas with an indie book, it's also eligible for different awards, whereas self-published would not be. My book is pretty much available everywhere books are sold. At any bookstore chain.
How about libraries? Have you had it placed in public libraries?
I have. I've sent it to my Hicksville Public Library where I grew up, and my local library here, and it's available in all the different library systems. All three of my books are.
Yep. Just for a clarification for people who are not from Long Island, Hicksville sounds like it might be like a farm town or something, and I'm sure 100 years ago it was, but Hicksville is like it's almost a small city at this point. It's and in most states it would qualify, like it's as big as Indianapolis.
Now, is Hicksville named after somebody named Hicks, and that's why it's Hicksville as opposed to named after a bunch of country bumpkins?
Exactly. It used to be called Bumpkin Town until, but it was I think Valentine Hicks and a bunch of his brothers and family helped finance the Long Island Railroad station, and they built a major railroad station there in Hicksville, which is still,
Hicksville is one of the main hubs of the Long Island Railroad. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, how did your parents decide on that? Coming from Argentina, how did they end up? I'm just curious, like what brought them to Hicksville, Long Island?
The same thing that drives all Jews to come to the U.S., persecution.
Yeah, but I understand why they were leaving where they were. I don't understand why they landed where they did in Hicksville.
Yeah. So I think, my understanding from talking to my family and others who came from Argentina to the U.S., the airlines, the major ways to get out of Buenos Aires and come to the U.S., they either flew to Miami or New York City. And so you had a lot of people that landed in Miami and then landed somewhere around there. And same with us. My folks landed in New York City.
So they got to LaGuardia and they ended up where it was a good place, an affordable place to live for immigrants, and that was it. All right.
Yeah, I think they were in the city for a while. They were in Jamaica, Queens, for a few years, and then
the other hub. So it was all about the Long Island Railroad. It was basically where's the first stop from Jamaica going east, and that was Hicksville.
That's right. They waited until they changed the name from Bumpkin Town, and then they moved.
Interesting.
So my question is, then, when your family left Argentina, were they fleeing persecution or were they looking to persecute people? Because you just said that was why they left, was persecution. But
that's true.
Which end were they?
I come from a long line of racist bullies, so they were doing it.
Yeah, me too.
No, they were being persecuted. It was the Perón government, and they just realized it's probably best to have a better life in the U.S. Yeah.
So as a singer, do you ever want to just belt out "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina"?
Only in the shower.
Yeah. Is music still a part of your life? You still sing?
I don't. My wife asks me every once in a while, but I don't.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
why not?
I don't know. I don't think I'm that particularly good a singer. I just never really pursued it. I just, if I.
But you're going to be given the solo at the Vatican. You can't say I'm not particularly good as a kid to be a soloist at the Vatican. You can't suck.
No, but I mean, how do you top that? Like
I get. Yeah, you've played Madison Square Garden. You're done. Yeah,
I peaked at 13.
Yeah. I'm just going to say, as a fellow husband who occasionally gets into trouble with his wife once or twice a month, I find it very helpful that I can just once in a while take my wife in my arms, play some music, and sing in her ears. It like makes her melt. Even though I'm not a great singer, this is the fact that I would just play a slow song and hold her and dance and sing in her ear. And it just kind of softens. It doesn't negate any of the bad stuff I've done this month, but it kind of softens it because she'll go, Yeah, he burnt the roast, but he sang to me.
I have to say he's done that. He's done that to me a few times, and it made me puke.
I burnt your roast.
Yeah, that definitely burnt my roast hard. Can I ask how you ended up on Knock 'Em Dead with you were on Knock 'Em Dead with Tony Walker, right?
I was, yeah. So I knew Tony's brother Frank Walker, who's a singer-songwriter on Long Island. He was 2 years younger than me, and when I was in high school, I was very involved in the drama club. We did musicals, and Frank and I were in a show together my senior year. And Tony, who was in the junior high at the time, in 7th grade, showed up to rehearsals at the high school, and the director said, "Why don't you come up on stage and be in the show?" And so this kid from junior high kind of stowed away in our show and became part of the cast. And so I got to know Tony back when he was 12 years old. And
did he sing? He sang.
I mean, he sang in the chorus. I think he had like 2 or 3 lines, and then he sang in the chorus. But he was great, and he was very funny and very confident then. And we stayed in touch and reconnected on Facebook. And then I was on his show to plug one of the independent bookstore readings that I was doing on Long Island a few weeks ago.
I was interested in that because he has a lot of different people on. Sometimes he has musicians on. He often has comedians on. I've never seen him have like authors who are specifically authors to interview him about their books. And then I saw you on there. I was like, wait a minute, this is unusual for Tony. How did this happen? And then I saw the Long Island background. I assumed there was some kind of connection on Long Island about that. So
I think the only way I could convince him to have an author on was I told him my book had a centerfold, and he agreed.
Well, it does. Every book has a centerfold. There's just no picture of a naked girl there.
It's technically true.
Yeah. So now, how long has this book been out?
It's been out a little over 2 months. Came out on July 11th. And and I've been on a little mini book tour, doing readings at a bunch of indie bookstores on Long Island, Jersey, Philadelphia, upstate New York.
Is that fun? You enjoy that? I mean,
I do, because the first 2 books that I wrote came out during COVID. Worst Date Ever came out in March of 2020, and I had a whole book tour lined up, and of course it all got canceled. So I missed out on talking to people, meeting readers and potential readers. So it's been really fun to go out to the Barnes and Nobles and the different bookstores and do readings and signings.
Because this is, I think the guys will verify that this is part of the showbiz life. It can be fun, especially for me. It's hard to take compliments. People come up and tell you that you're great and all that kind of stuff. It's really difficult to hear that because I know better. But there is also there are also people who have no experience or no skill in the area that whatever it is, and they want to tell you how you can improve it. Do people come up and give you advice on writing?
Absolutely. And really nobody has come up and said you're great, because 99% of the people have not read the book. They're just reading it for the first time. But that doesn't preclude them from giving me advice on the book. And I think my favorite, people are endlessly fascinating. I was at a bookstore. I won't say which one or where it was, but somebody came up to me and they said, "What's your book about?" And I kind of gave them the brief two sentence explanation of what it's about. And they looked at me very seriously and earnestly and said, "Are there dragons in the book?" And I'm like, I was thinking, if there were dragons in a book that's a romantic comedy, you don't think I would lead with that? You don't think there'd be a big friggin' dragon on the cover?
Not always, to be honest with you. I think lately we've had a slew of vampire people, and there's no vampires on the book on the cover, and you wouldn't know that by the title at all.
Yeah.
So,
So I said, "No, there's no dragons." And she said, "Is there a way that you can include dragons?" And I said, "You mean in this book?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "I don't think you understand how anything works. This book is published already."
Well, here's because in the self-publishing world, I have a friend. I'm not going to mention his name here, but I know he often goes back and changes his book. He makes wholesale changes to his book on Amazon, and so if you buy it now, it's not going to be the same as if you bought it 2 years ago or whatever. So maybe she's not completely off base with that comment, but it's very rare that once something is published that they make changes to it. So
yeah.
I have a question about the cover.
Yeah.
The music that's in there, is that from a real song, or is there somebody just haphazardly throw notes up there?
Yeah.
And what song?
It's in F.
It is not a song. When the graphic designer from the publisher gave this to me, that was one of my comments, because I know enough about music that I said that isn't a song or a melody or anything. That's just.
Because I'm looking at small print. I'm thinking, well, am I missing something?
Yeah, I got to enlarge it. Hold on, I want to see. I know it's in F. I could see the key signature there, but it doesn't look like there's any real meter to it.
No, it's gibberish.
Yeah, there's no time signature, so it could be any.
Yeah, no. If you sang this for the Pope, he'd let go of your hand.
B flat. Yeah, no, that's very. It sounds terrible. I can already see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes no sense. I'll play it later on.
In what key? Not what key. In what time signature?
Well, I would just play it open as each note is just what it is. So I wouldn't. There is no measure there. You can see there's no. So it looks like it's 1, 2, 3. It's like it's in 54/4 or something.
That's what we were going for. Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
Jazz. Okay.
Yeah.
Jazz. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, with the reviews and stuff, do you monitor reviews on as they come in online, and people do you allow yourself to read them? Because I think I would be very reluctant to want to dive in there, because I know people, and people piss me off. do you read your reviews?
Yeah, I do, but I mean, I feel like I have a pretty healthy attitude about it, because not every book is for everybody, and this isn't, there's people who are going to read it and they're not moved by it. I haven't gotten any bad reviews. I haven't been trolled or anything. This is
not even such bad reviews. It's just people giving again what they think is, because in comedy there is a huge segment of the audience that feels like they are entitled to tell the comedian how to do his act. And music, it's not as pronounced, but it's still there. And I think, because you brought up how difficult it is to be get a literary agent. I mean, these are things people in the performing arts can definitely relate to. The challenges are all the same, and the people are still the same. The people think they know, and that's.
I've had that experience more at my readings, where we were talking before, where somebody will give me their advice on a book that I've already written, or give me advice on what I should do with it. As far as the written reviews that are online, I have looked at them all. I get notified when someone leaves a review, and they've all been lovely, 5-star, kind of glowing reviews. I haven't had anything negative, but in person, people, they give advice, and all you can do is sit there and say, you have no idea what you're talking. You haven't even read the book,
right?
But you're telling me, what I should do with it, and who should star in the movie. And I'm like, all right, well, thank you for your advice. I appreciate it.
Who should star in the movie?
A few people have asked me that. It's 2 16-year-olds. And as I've told many people, I'm not about to start researching 16-year-olds on the internet right now.
No, you don't want your browser history looking at that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Steven could tell you, though.
From experience.
Motherfucker. God damn it. You know what? Yeah, we're going to have to meet on the roof after this, but go ahead and finish this interview.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I really do. I apologize, but I'll fall back again on it later on. I'll just backtrack because I'm incapable of getting off. Once I have something, I'm like a pit bull. I will sink my teeth into it and not let go. But so now, are you already working on something for the future, or are you still just out marketing this and don't have time to kind of wrap your head around your next creative project?
I have been working. I've got 2 other novels in the hopper. I've got the second draft of one completed, and the other one is mostly outlined, the one after that. But yeah, certainly less time to keep working on those while I've been doing marketing for this one. But in the next month or 2, that'll slow down, and I can, keep working on finishing up those 2 novels.
Is romance an element of that?
Of
the next ones, yeah.
No, not really. I typically don't write in one particular genre. I just think of a good story, a good character, or a good situation, and then see what genre it fits in.
Yeah.
So yeah, the next one's more of like a family mystery, road trip type movie, a book rather, and then the one after that, I'm not sure what genre it is yet. It's sort of like a workplace comedy.
I appreciate your creative approach to this because I am very much the same way. I don't want to be like put in a box, but I think success in any creative endeavor almost requires that you put yourself in a box, and I hate that. But it is definitely like in authorship, in music, in comedy, they want to know what they're getting before they get it. Like they don't want to necessarily know the story, they don't want to know the song, they don't want to know the comedy special, but they want to know what to expect in a certain genre, and that's how you build your audience. And I think I have paid the price dearly for not playing by that rule. I respect your creative approach to this, but it hasn't worked out for me.
Yeah, it is hard because you're right. You want to get to the point where people know they're looking for your book because they want something humorous and light or intricately plotted or whatever the thing that you're known for. But to me, a novel, it takes it takes me 2 years to write if I'm lucky. And it's a lot of work, and then a lot of work to find a publisher. Like I want to write a story that I'm not going to get bored with, that I love. And if that happens to be science fiction or horror, that's what I'm going to write.
Yeah.
There's hopefully enough people that are interested in those things. Yeah. At some point, if I get lucky enough to really become a name and have a following, maybe I rethink that, but I'm not there.
Well, yeah, all right, but I think sometimes you set, and I'm not suggesting you follow any advice here. I'm just thinking out loud. Is that you set this expectation? You've done a romantic comedy, a rom-com, and that will attract a lot of women readers. And listen, I think most of, not to put guys down, but most people who are reading books, novels, tend to be more on the female side than males. Anyway, but rom-coms especially are a genre that attracts the female audience. And then I think what? I'm disappointed. It's not another romantic comedy. Now, I'm mad at you.
Yeah. So it's funny that I'll tell you a quick story. That the second novel that I wrote is a science fiction detective story called Prior Futures. And it's kind of like a Blade Runner, it's kind of dark and cynical. And when I've had that book out at bookstores, along with Madcap Serenade, and a couple approaches me, every single time the guy is all interested in Prior Futures and the woman's interested in Madcap Serenade. I had one couple that said, well, we read in bed, so we're each going to be buying a book and it'll be like you're in bed with us.
Oh,
like, don't make it weird. Don't make it weird.
Yeah.
Now, has anybody saw the Prior Futures and thought it was like a stock market book?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It kind of sounds like.
I'm sorry, I'm disappointed. I was looking for some investment advice, and I'm like, guys, this damn mystery that I can't solve.
That's very cool. Now, we're very short on time. We're over time here, but I'm curious now. Switching gears, is that a difficult thing? 'Cause in music, we call that switching gears, where you go from playing let's say, a jazz ensemble during the day, and that night you have a rock band gig. I've done that quite a bit in my life. Switching gears as far as writing, you can't work on two things like that at the same time, can you?
I can't be doing the writing at the same time. I can be outlining one book while I'm writing another book. But yeah, no, Prior Futures was written mostly in a vacuum over several years. But as always, it's just, I think about the situation and the character and what's happening, and then think this lends itself to science fiction or horror or mystery. And, whatever tone I think is going to be best for the story. And then I'll just write in that genre after that.
Do you have the story completely finished in your mind before you start writing, or do you have the idea? What is it like for you?
Yeah, so mostly I'm a plotter, so I do a lot of outlining, and I know exactly where the story's going. I still leave enough surprise for myself to make it seem like it's happening as you're reading it, but I mostly heavily plot my books. With Madcap Serenade, it was interesting because it was the first time that I did not have a plot. I let these two 16-year-olds loose, and I kind of wrote with no plan in mind, and they got into all kinds of shenanigans and said all kinds of things in the first draft that I don't think I would have come up with if I was just plotting it. And then by the second draft, I pruned it down a little bit to make it more manageable and make it sound more like a story. But usually I'm plotting things.
Very cool. Now, do you think that experience will make you less of a plotter in the future? Because I don't know, it sounds more fun to go that way, where you're just flying by the seat of your pants and just whatever comes into your mind, let the characters tell you where to go from here. It sounds more fun than plotting.
Yeah, I think I could absolutely. I definitely plan on doing that. The next two novels that I'm working on are also very heavily, intricately plotted, and so by necessity they need to be outlined. But I do have a couple of ideas that are more character based, and I could see just writing those characters and seeing where that novel goes.
Wow.
Now, just out of curiosity, since this book was not as planned, it was like more free flowing because of the spirit of the two teenagers. Does the male character have a condom in his wallet in his back pocket?
1979.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I know. Everybody did. I had one since 1971. I think I got my first condom. I didn't use it until 79.
So no, this is actually a pretty clean and wholesome book. So I don't think even the word condom shows up.
Wow.
But if it helps
but
make
the word doesn't have to show up as long as
the indentation in your wallet, right?
Yeah, so the word doesn't have to show up, just the indentation has to show up. That's all they. Yeah.
Stephen doesn't get any of these references.
Not everybody sits around writing about 16-year-olds fucking. Okay. Sometimes they write about the wholesome things.
I did not say anything like that. I'm just saying because Matt had one in his wallet for like 12 years.
What other reason would a condom come up in conversation? Hi, Stu. Hi, Jim. You got a condom? Sure do. Let's have spaghetti.
Settle down there.
Most 16-year-olds have condoms in their wallets and don't get to use them until the day after they're married. Come on.
Settle down, Tom. Just let me explain something to you. In the 1970s, a young boy getting a condom to put in his wallet was like a rite of passage. You were getting it meant you were getting to the next stage of your life. Most of us didn't use them, but we knew it was there, so it would have that indent in your wallet, so that when you opened it, you could you were cool. Oh, you're ready.
Look, when I was 16, my mother gave me a gross of condoms. Okay, that's a box of 144 boxes. I mean condoms in a box,
and you still haven't used them all today.
I've used one of them.
I'm from the 90s, dude. That was all on the ladies. They had to be on birth control.
I reused it. I've washed it. It's very sturdy.
Right. Well, I didn't know. I've learned something new again here today. I didn't know that a condom was like adult language in a book, but I guess I'm shocked by that. Anyway. Dan, I appreciate you getting up and being part of the program, and wish you great success. Are you doing Long Island bookstores at the moment, or are you just are you upstate where you reside?
I'm upstate right now. I'm trying to set up some more book events in November, but nothing scheduled right now.
All right. Well, if anything happens, if you got anything scheduled, let me know, and I will be glad to promote it anywhere in the country. Even if it's upstate, we do have a national reach and a bit of an international reach too. So, and the next book, when you publish the next book, please feel free to come back, and we'd love to talk to you some more about that project. In the meantime, people can go to dankopcow.com. Link is in the description. You can get the book today. And leave a good review. Thank you for being here.
And buy his album, Birdstone the Music, that you see right there.
Yeah, I will be performing that music this weekend at where am I? Oh, Margaritas in Long Beach, Long Island, the 20th. I'll perform that entire line that's on the top of the book. And
Madcap Jazz.
Thank you. Let me know how that goes. Yeah.
All right, well, I'll record it and send it to you.
Nice.
Anyway,
thank you very much, guys. I appreciate the time. This has been great.
We appreciate you being here. Thanks for being here. Bye.
Thanks.
Oops. Dan Kopkow, folks. The link's in the description. Let me come back to this setup.
That's kind of melodic. DanKopkow.com.
DanKopkow.com. Let's get rid of Steven over here. Yeah, and then do this. No. What's going on? Stop doing that. Stop it.
You stop.
I'm in control here, and I will chuck your ass out of here. Actually, I'm not in control. Anyway, we're going to meet our next guest in 1 minute. I have to do brief news. I'll probably bomb the news halfway through, but we really got to get to this. And we'll devote some extra time to Dr. Johnson when he's...
At least 15 people were killed and 40 others were seriously burned in a gasoline tanker explosion in Haiti, according to the country's prime minister.
16 of the injured were transferred to hospitals in Fond-de-Blanc and Les Cayes near the accident site in the Nip department. Prime Minister Gary Conille posted on the X social media platform. Initial reports suggested the explosion occurred in an area known as Morne-Calbassier in Miragoane, Haiti. Paul Gomez reported.
At least 100 people have died in Myanmar due to flooding and landslides triggered by Typhoon Yagi, officials reported.
Dam bursts, house collapses, and mass flooding have wreaked havoc in the Asian nation, said Zaw Min Tun in an audio statement posted by RT India on X. He stated that 113 people had been confirmed dead, with an additional 64 missing. Yagi is Asia's most powerful storm this year, having already impacted Vietnam, Laos, the Chinese island of Hainan, and the Philippines. Chris Anderson reporting.
8 migrants attempting to cross the English Channel from France in a small rubber boat died, officials confirmed.
The vessel, carrying around 60 individuals from countries including Eritrea, Sudan, Syria and Iran, encountered difficulties in waters north of Boulogne-sur-Mer in the northern Pas-de-Calais region, the BBC reported. Authorities were alerted at 1 a.m. local time. The boat was seen heading toward a beach in Ambleteuse, but rescue teams were unable to assist from the sea, the French Coast Guard said. Benjamin Wright reporting.
Israel's military investigation concluded there is a high probability that 3 Israeli hostages were killed during a November airstrike aimed at eliminating a Hamas Northern Gaza Brigade chief.
The families were informed last week by Israel Defense Forces officials who stated that a comprehensive inquiry revealed the deaths were due to IDF actions. IDF officials and hostage families have begun to disclose the investigation's results. On December 14th, 3 bodies were discovered in a tunnel in Jabalia. Joseph Eckerson reporting.
Good old Joe Eckerson.
This is the latest news headlines.
Is that it, Al? Are we done? Al?
Favorable weather and relentless efforts by firefighters are helping to contain a trio of destructive wildfires in California, state and local officials announced.
The most significant of these blazes, the line fire near San Bernardino, Cali, was 25% contained as of 1:13 p.m., according to the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. Some evacuation orders have been lifted, but others affecting 44,000 homes and commercial buildings in San Bernardino County. Jim Kender reporting.
A Waffle House employee was shot and killed in North Carolina by a customer who became agitated and verbally abusive after placing his order, according to Laurinburg police.
Officers responded to a report of shots fired shortly after midnight Friday at a Waffle House in Laurinburg, where they found 18-year-old Burley Dawson Locklear with a gunshot wound, police said. Locklear was taken to Scotland Memorial Hospital, where he later died. Kevin Sanders reporting.
A Pennsylvania man has pleaded no contest to charges of killing his father and stepmother with a sword in their home nearly 5 years ago.
Court documents show that 43-year-old LeVar Fountain entered no contest pleas to third-degree murder charges in York County Court earlier this month.
Now, Ron, this is your neighborhood, right? This where the guy killed his family with the sword? No? Are you muted? I think you're muted.
Oh, I don't know. That happens every other day in Pennsylvania.
Sword murders. All right.
I'm disturbed by the fact that that kid at the Waffle House did not have to die. They took him to Scotland to the hospital. I'm sure there's hospitals closer to that Waffle House.
All right.
They probably cost him his life.
He did not have to die anyway. I mean, they shouldn't have shot him in the first place. All he did was ask for he wanted maple syrup, and you gave him, I don't know, whatever. How do you screw up an order at Waffle House so bad that the guy?
What time was it?
You have to shoot a guy. What time?
If it's like 3 a.m. on a Friday, like Friday into Saturday, it's popping in there. Everyone's drunk.
So there's just like handgun stuff going crazy.
Dude, it's like a wild
Waffle Housey.
Yeah, and then somebody fucks up your order. Yeah, I'm gonna get pissed off. I'm already drunk. Don't get my fucking burger or waffles wrong.
Now, I've seen a great video where a lady freaked out at a Panera Bread yesterday, and this guy, he like starts wailing on her and has her in a headlock on the ground. It's a beautiful video.
Oh, I saw that. I saw that.
Was that the one entitled Panera Bread, a love story?
A magical serenade.
Oh, a love story, yeah.
Yeah, a love story. Anyway, it's time to move on to our next guest. I should change the outlay here now and do this. Make room for him and put me over here. Get rid of Ron. Put Ron up in the corner. Ron likes this side, right? Is that right? Is that the best?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Will Johnson is author of his latest book. Is called Cannabis in Spiritual Practice. I use it religiously. I don't know about you, but interesting. It's the ecstasy of Shiva and the calm of Buddha. I don't get any of that.
I have questions. I do have questions about that because Shiva is the destroyer. So you have the ecstasy of the destroyer. I mean, I could see like if it was like the ecstasy of Vishnu, who was the preserver, or the ecstasy of Brahma, who was like the creator. But
all right, why don't you ask him that question right now, ladies and gentlemen?
Please. I'm a coward. Because I'm a coward, I would never ask him that to his face.
He heard you.
I don't think so.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome into Coffee with the Dog right now, Dr. Will Johnson. Good morning.
Well, you guys are hysterical.
I think that's the first time they've ever been told that.
And GD, I'll get right into that right from the beginning. So I've been listening in for, I don't know, the last 10 minutes. So the last 5 minutes with your guest, that was hysterical with all you guys. And then you go into the news. This was some crazy shit that goes on in the news. And then here we are, back again, maybe sharing some better news. Look, what I can say, marijuana came into my life 1966. I'm a junior in university. God's medicine, gang.
Wait a second.
Right.
You only had 2 strains of marijuana back then, right? There were only 2 strains.
You go into shops now, and these young kids, and they're earnest, and they've got bright eyes, and they're probably high, know so much more about this stuff than I do.
Well, I agree. I hear what you're saying. They seem to have a lot of intricate knowledge that is pretty useless from because I'm from the 60s, and I don't need to know all that.
You take what you get and you're grateful for it, right?
Right.
But now I suppose, you maybe want a little indica if I'm kind of chilling out and going to bed, want a good sleep. And God, I got to go do something, but I want to be a little high. It's, sativa. Anyway, look, right from the get-go, the very first time I got high, I got that, for me anyway, this was about waking up way beyond, who I thought I was, right? Waking up to something just deeper, deeper in me. And it really has become a guide through my life. Now, I did in my early 30s decide just to quit cannabis. I got it. I became a very sincere Buddhist practitioner for 13 years. My story is that I woke up one day 13 years later and I realized I wasn't happy. And I started bringing, things like cannabis for my awakening practices, some of the other entheogens. And that's what got me to write the book. Actually, it was my kids that got me to write this book. They had, you guys will appreciate this. It's an upside down intervention. Dad, sit down. We got to talk to you. Dad, you use it and we see how good it is, how these practices, spontaneous movement, awakening the body, liberating the breath, they just happen for you. Dad, you got to write a book about it, or if you don't, you're going to die a coward. So in a sense, it's coming out and, putting this out here where we're in such a time of change. Can I go to GD just for a second here? Because this is a good response. So Shiva's an interesting. I think he was probably a real guy onto whom a lot of mythical dazzle was subsequently overlaid. Okay, stories down to this day, and actually, my wife, when she was young, lived in India for 15 years, around the where there were yeshiva babas. So they would show up at her place and they'd interact, and they would invite her into their practices. Now, what were their practices? The legends down to this day is that Shiva and Parvati, I've got a copy of an old Indian print of this. Shiva and Parvati, his wife, are sitting there creating bhang, which is a cannabis drink. Shiva drank it. Now, the legends down to this day, what they then say is that Shiva would drink bhang. He'd feel it entering, waking up his body. He'd come to standing. Energies would start opening, and his body would start making spontaneous movements, out of which he brings the body-oriented practices of yoga and dance to the planet. And this is what these guys are up to. So my wife would wake up in the morning out on the porch. There are these, they just sought shelter in the night. They were always very respectful, invited her to join them in their practices, which always began for them, ingesting, cannabis. Now, Shiva is a destroyer in the sense that he's, wanting to crack the egg, the holding that we're all, stuck in when we're all living in bodies that don't move and don't breathe and don't feel themselves and are just caught up here.
Wow.
And come on, that's who
I could I'm relating to what you just said there as far as I've never gotten that from smoking it, but first time I really experienced edible high, not the first time in the last 50 years, because I did in college a little bit, but recently in the last 5 years, the first time I took an edible, I took 175 milligrams of a chocolate bar, and I went in and my body was definitely feeling it first. And I went in and I told my wife, I said, I think this shirt is giving me superpowers. And she went, what? I was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm young again. Like I can bend over and touch the floor without bending my knees. Something is remarkable. I just feel like, are you high? Oh yeah, maybe it was the edible.
So I had always smoked like flower, growing up. And that always gave me the fun high, or the real sleepy high. And then as the dispensaries and things became a thing and I started experimenting and learning some, is where I started finding different ways to take it, did different things. And for example, when I get dragged to church with my family, they're all Hispanic. So when they go to church, they go to church, you know. So I pop a 200 milligram pill. It's total THC, and I go in, and man, by the time that thing hits, I'm dancing with everyone. I'm singing at the top of my lungs. I'm having religious experience. I'm crying, and then it wears off, and then everyone's like, "I didn't think you liked church." I was like, "I love it, man." Like, you know. But then, then I use the cartridge
just for 1 second here. I just want to let the people who are writing the disability, Social Security disability checks to Stephen. You just heard him admit that he's up and dancing. You blew your cover, man.
Figuratively, you know what I'm saying? But it's but no, and then I use the cartridge. I use that medicinally. I use that for pain relief and for my depression. So. Like each one has
way to just skate over that admission to defrauding the government out of disability.
Stephen, to paraphrase something Matt said earlier, nobody accidentally says that they're dancing in church.
When I say dancing, I just mean like flailing.
Dancing. And we know dancing.
Hey, let me jump in. Why not dance in church? That would be the best place to do it. Church is where the music is.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on this whole idea of cannabis being a gateway or a window to a spiritual enlightenment. The question, and I don't expect you to have the answer, but just your opinion on why organized religion, does not even recognize it in any way as such a thing.
And neither does the we're living at a time. One of the beautiful things is all these spiritual teachings from Asia swamping our shores, right? And almost universally, very few exceptions, they have a very negative attitude towards any mind-altering substance.
Right.
They're coming into a new culture. It's time for that to change. And what I'm getting at, every time these teachings migrate, what's going on in this culture? Where are the people, getting high, right? So it goes into Japan. I think these gentle Chinese monks that go into Japan and they meet the samurai, and Zen becomes fierce, very fierce practice. It climbs the Himalayas onto the Tibetan plateau. The indigenous Bampo, shamanistic, animistic, suddenly there's these wrathful and peaceful entities and bodhisattvas in Buddhism. So it's coming over here. And for me, the two major homegrown spiritual events in my lifetime anyway, one has been the rave movement, guys. It started earlier for me. Our kids are, and Stephen, you too, good on you, man. This is how God comes through us, right? And the other is the advent and availability of entheogens from cannabis, up to LSD. Now, one of the downsides to everything that's been happening, there's been such prohibition, we haven't created protocols. So what I tried to do in this book is at least here's some protocols. Now, if you're doing these very, very strong body awakening, breath liberating practices, for some people, not for everybody, you've got to make that decision for yourself. But for some people, a small amount of cannabis can work very, very well. What's interesting, this is about waking up the body, liberating the breath. Traditional Dharma, it's all about concentrating the mind, getting stiller, narrow and narrow. And frankly, for those practices, entheogens don't work very well.
Right.
Allow me to get into the mindset.
Yeah. I'm assuming, because you said coming here, I'm going to assume that you are U.S. based, right? In the United States.
You're assuming that I am talking to you from the United States?
Yes.
At this very moment, the answer is no.
Okay. Because we are kind of at a crossroads here in the United States about this. We have several states, lots of states who have now moved to legalize it, but there's still a hesitancy to nationally make it legal nationally, and there are still people who are clinging to this idea, and kind of almost gave them something to work with here, because they call it a gateway drug, and while it can open your mind and make you more willing to kind of experiment with things like LSD. I don't think the idea of that they put out there that it's a gateway drug and will lead to you to become a heroin addict or a crack addict someday. I don't think that's necessarily true, but a lot of them will take that statement that you just made and kind of think that that's what you meant by that, right?
Well, I do have a very positive attitude towards the positive, responsible uses of these kinds of substances. Man, they've blown a lot of people's mind. They've cracked a lot of people's egg, so that people go, "Wow, there's something else that's going on here. It's more than meets the eye." And look, guys, I never thought I was going to live to see the day that states were legalized. Well, never thought.
I agree. Well, I remember being 15 years old reading High Times magazine, and they were proponents of legalizing marijuana, and I was like, "That's a pipe dream. That'll never happen." And I have often said, if I could go back and tell my 15-year-old self what the world would be like now, he'd be like, "What are you on? What are you on?"
Dare doesn't even really teach against marijuana anymore, nor do they teach it as a gateway drug.
I did not know that. Yeah. But you have said the phrase "crack the egg" a few times here, and with somebody who has a very egg-shaped head, it just brings me back to a time when I got smacked on the top of the head with a baseball bat, and my head did not crack. So it's hard to crack the egg. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, see, it's interesting. The egg I'm talking about, you don't crack it with a baseball bat. You crack it by feeling it and relaxing and letting go. End of story. That's what these practices are about. I look in the students that I teach, probably 60% of them are what I call Pure Land students. Very pure, no substances, pure diet, no caffeine, no alcohol, nothing. They do that because it works for them. 40%, 50% are what I call Ganja Sangha. Okay? And there are people that these practices, or the little physiological hacks that we're applying to these practices, you do this while you're sitting, they're a little bit high, a little bit on cannabis because the practices are strong. It just works well.
Now, but there is I understand, because I talked to a lot of people about the creative boost that you get, the window of creativity that something like cannabis will open for you. But there's I think there's a whole other leap before you get to this idea of a higher entity, a higher power, God, whatever you want to call that. That doesn't necessarily come for everybody who has experienced the high or any of that kind of stuff.
And the kind of stuff I'm playing with, it isn't for everybody. It's for those people they have that itch that, okay, they've been awakening. Hey, this is cool. Life is good. But there's still, it's almost like a psychic itch of the phantom limb. There's something else just about being alive, about being human. It's not for everybody. I was born that way. Okay.
Yeah.
But you know what I see, the whole range of people, whether you use things like cannabis or not. Everybody can benefit. Just let's wake up a little, gang. And what I mean by waking up is not having the right attitudes this way or that way about politics, although that's a whole other discussion, right? And it's just like, right now, I feel there's sensations going on. There's a body. Hey, there's a breath here. Wow, I can really see the visual field. The visual field's really present. I hear those sounds. I wasn't hearing them. To our benefit.
I hate to be a hippie, but
I was gonna say, what if somebody likes skiing instead of grass?
Hey, there is a reason. Skiers, okay, but I was a skier, but I'm older than you already. But as a kid, I was a skier. It wasn't happening yet. Now, snowboarders came in right about the time that cannabis exploded around the country, and snowboarding was whoa. The guys could, get into this, and the surfers and the boarders. There's a reason that most of them are smoking it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Very high. It's a great experience. Hallelujah.
I have a friend in comedy who he wrote a blog post because he was high on mushrooms, microdosed on mushrooms. He put them in his Rice Krispies that morning or something. But he wrote about skiing uphill. That's that's not really, I don't think, possible. But he in his mind he was skiing uphill. Part of, because you mentioned politics, and here's the thing: I think a lot of these people really need to just get stoned. I'd say a lot of stuck-up people who have these really antiquated, let's go back 100 years or 200 years in our society. They just really need to get stoned once. I almost feel like it should be mandatory that everybody at least experience it once, and maybe we'd get somewhere.
I'm totally on board with you. Your idea of how that would work is probably far more reasonable than the one that I concocted over the last couple of years. Because what I think, if you're going to run for politics, any kind of political office, any kind, and let's start it down with the dog catcher or something, right? God, he wants a job. He's got a good job. Well, I don't know the dog catcher. Let's say governor isn't up. The national park system in the United States is so amazing.
Yeah.
These substances really do their magic mostly when we're outside in big nature, right? So let's have every one of these people, before they can put their name, I want to run for this office, get them out into the into one of the parks for maybe like a 2 or 3 day isolated trip. And definitely, you probably have a better chance of saying at some point you got to have some cannabis and smoke it. I thought it should be LSD, personally.
Yeah.
And then they come out there, and they're in touch with that amazing.
Well, I'm old school like you,
human, right?
Because LSD was the hallucinogen that I grew up on, and I used it to a great extent when I was young. Now we've got so many different kind of hallucinogens, psychedelics, and I think they are safer than, because some of the LSD was not, or it was produced by not scientists, but by kids. But some of the stuff now seems to be safer. I am really interested in DMT. Have you looked into DMT, and have you tried it? Now, what was your experience from the spiritual perspective? Did you see the entities?
Yeah, there were a couple of things that came flying at me. A couple of things. Now, this is very interesting relative to what we're really talking about right now. It's a very short-lived experience. Someone had some, okay. And he said, take some more. I said, whoa, no, I've had enough, and I'm on my back. It is the trippiest visual thing you have ever experienced in your life, and it changes, and weird shit starts kind of floating around. Ultimately, though, what I felt, especially, it was short. So after it was over, I prefer what I call this awakened me to, say, a different realm. Okay. I felt I was like just lying here having this insane, crazy, great visual experience, right? It didn't feel like it got into the center of my center of me, in the same way that a little bit of cannabis, a little bit of LSD with meditation, something like MDMA can do. And those are what I call the entheogens, that they awaken the God in you. And like we're talking about, come on, we all have it in us. Some of us are more fanatic about, what it is for me? Holding back, securing the egg. It's too physically painful for me, guys.
Yeah.
Can't do it anymore.
So yeah, the thing about LSD was always that it lasted too long. There was a time where you'd always, okay, I'm ready to go back to normal now, but that's what appeals to me about DMT is it's a short trip to the edge of the universe and back in 15 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds way more fun.
Yeah.
So DMT, is it pretty much like LSD, just short and compressed? Like it's like the LSD, you get the same trip, but it just takes longer to get there.
Very different experience, right?
Yeah, nobody on and listen, somebody who's done LSD probably 1,000 times in my life. I never saw entities come, because this is the thing that people describe as angels or beings come down. Sometimes they mock you, sometimes they give you things that you need to focus on, but there's the definite beings that come to visit you on DMT. I want to see those beings. I don't know how to get DMT.
You're going to be so disappointed when your entities look like me.
Oh, that would be hell.
No, man, that would be way cool.
Yeah. Well, for me, that's my personal hell. I actually that would be a terrifying nightmare. But and this brings me to the next point I was going to make about DMT. There are some people who say they've never had any spiritual kind of moment on DMT, which I find it's unusual, but there are a few of them, and I find it really weird why some people don't. And I know of some people who've had really bad experiences on only one or two. But those people, I'm just wondering what is in their makeup that caused that experience to be so a nightmare for them. Any clue in your mind about what the difference is?
With all of these substances, what they do, they accentuate what's already here, right? Like cannabis, you feel what you feel. Hey, man, a lot of times I've been holding on, all that tightness, I may not want to feel it, right? And the same thing with, stronger entheogens, LSD, mushrooms, you just what happens. And I think that has to be true of stuff like DMT and ayahuasca as well. But look what gets interesting. The whole big cutting edge of psychotherapy now is using these substances, maybe psilocybin, sometimes LSD, and then doing very focused guided work with people, to help people who, I smoke, nothing happens to me.
Generally,
stronger medicine.
Generally, the medical professionals who deal with mental health have been very open to it. We had one psychiatrist on in recent weeks who was very much against the idea of using any kind of mind-altering substances, like even cannabis. He said what it does is break down the ego. And I'm like, what's so wrong? What's so bad about breaking down the ego? I think we live in a time where there's too much ego, too much ego controlling who we are and how we behave towards each other. So I don't see anything wrong with that. But for the most part, the question I have for you is: since the book has been out, has anybody from organized religion left a review or let you know that this has made a profound difference in the way they look at spirituality?
That's interesting. Not personally in email. And I know with Amazon, you buy books, and then they have reviews. I've never read any of the reviews, so I can't answer that, that question.
I wouldn't either. I was part of our previous conversation as we had an author on. I wouldn't dread reading those reviews. I'd want to, but then something would stop me from saying, no, there's a boogeyman in there that's going to break your heart, make you angry, whatever. I'm just not going to read it.
I always thought it would be a cool thing if Amazon offered authors an option to respond to a review, and you can choose probably not to do any of them, but I would have called out a couple of idiots.
Yeah. Whoever just told me say goodbye to Gov, thank you. We have to get off Governor's Comedy Network right now. Richie Byrne is there Saturday night. Go see Richie Byrne. As I mentioned yesterday, a lot of comedy clubs do not promote their comedians. Gov's is one of the ones that does. I got several